Hey, lad. Mr. Bambino, how are you?
So good. How are you, Aunt Candy?
Good. I'm so glad you're joining me today. And how's life been?
Oh, it's been a ride.
Been a week?
Been a week full of great things.
Like what?
Work,
What do you do for work?
discouragement, all the good things.
Well, we better talk, huh? Better talk. Your parents are coming to my house this week, by the way. Did you? Yeah, well, I said I might sleep the whole time. I've just started a new round of chemo, like
Oh,
just the other night. It just makes me a little more tired. So tell me about the map behind you and why you like that so much. You
it
said you
was.
like looking at it.
I like making my space seem intellectual without having to actually do anything. So when I first moved out of my parents' house, I went and I found this big world map that I could stick on a wall rather than actually decorate things. Yeah.
So is this your place in Logan?
Yep, this is my little
Is
15
there
square feet.
with school? Are you having a good time with that and teaching it?
Every once in a while, I have a really good time with teaching, but for the most part, no, not really.
So when you do have a good time, why so?
I have a really good time when I feel like I've got a kid that I'm connecting with really well, that it's making a difference for them. They're actually learning something, but more importantly, that they're cared for. I feel
Good.
like that's more what you offer, especially at a high school level, than the actual subject material.
What do you teach?
Teach in Preston, Idaho.
But what subject are you teaching?
Oh, I teach geometry and algebra too, so sophomores and juniors.
That's good. And you're not like my teacher that would just put the problem on the board and say good luck.
No,
I bet you're a little bit better than that.
I try and structure it so that any kid could do it, but
Good.
sometimes it's hard to get them to engage enough to get
Mm,
it done.
yep. That's a high school student for you sometimes, huh? So,
Most days.
well, that's good. So, right now in life, you're commuting a little bit to and from work.
hmm
What's what kind of outside of school? What else are you engaging in?
Well, I'm in a community production of Mamma Mia right now. So
What role are you playing?
I'm Eddie. I'm one of the groom's friends. It's a nice small role. I actually asked to be put in the ensemble for this show, but they didn't have enough guys try out. So the directors, who are my personal friends, were like, "Could you do this small role?" And I said, "Yeah, I can
So,
do that."
what's it's all about ABBA, right?
Yeah,
So, is there a favorite song from it?
I'll be honest. I did this show more because one of my friends that I did Beauty and the Beast with over the summer wanted to do it. I don't care much for the music or the show, but I did it because my friend wanted to do it and wanted someone to be there with him.
You don't love "Take a Chance on Me"? You
I
don't
mean,
love that, do
ABBA's fine. It's
you?
just
Okay,
a lot of work that I really don't feel passionate about doing.
sure, yeah. I can understand that. It's like an ABBA concert. Is really what that
It
production
really
is, isn't
is.
it?
There's like
So,
27 different songs, and we sing in all but one.
that's good. So tell me what theater is for you. Like, why theater?
Well, I'm kind of at a weird stage with theater anymore. When I first started, it was a great release. It was a good source of validation. I felt like I was really good at it, and it was a good bunch of people to be around and a nice social experience overall. But recently, in the last couple shows I've done, I just feel so tired and overwhelmed by life that having this extra thing, theater's a lot of work. And before that work was worth it for me because I felt like I was getting a, a boost from doing it. And now it feels like for me, theater is it's a taker of energy rather than a giver of energy anymore. I'm doing all the work, but I don't feel like I'm getting that same lift from it that I used to. And that's kind of been a weird and hard realization a little bit because I keep hoping, I keep doing these shows, hoping for that feeling, that validation, but
Is
something's changed for me to
well,
where it's
you're
not.
an adult now, working a full time job.
It must be
So
it.
I was going to say, yeah. So you feel like it doesn't give back like it used to,
It doesn't. So I really think this will be my last show for a long while.
huh? That makes me sad because your shows have been so fun.
And
Yeah.
like I said, in the past it has been really fun, but the last, I would say, two shows before this is what the first time I noticed it, and then Beauty and the Beast was the last show I did, and I love the cast and I love the people and I love that show even, and still it was just more of a drain than something to lift, and so I'm trying to figure out what will lift me in the same way. I'm kind of coming up short in that arena and have been for a couple months, but I keep looking.
I know you and I've had lots of visits around some of that, but
hmm
so when it comes to what does give you the biggest lift?
The thing I get most excited about, at least, and that's something that's become so rare that it is notable when it happens, is finding a unique piece of math. For instance, I
I've
have a
watched
lot
you.
of students that will come in that aren't my students, but they come in for help with different subjects. So just this last week, I had a student come in for help with his pre-calculus class,
Mm,
and he showed me this theorem called Heron's theorem, which I had never heard of before, but it was essentially you could determine the area of a triangle based only on its side lengths, and that's not usually how it's done. But
mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was such an interesting little theorem that I had to derive it and grapple with where did this mathematician, because it's an old theorem. I think it dates back to like 79 A.D.
Like when it was
when
discovered.
it was first discovered by this Greek mathematician.
Oh.
Heron was his name.
So, like, what? So, I know math makes you happy. I've watched you do that sometimes where you
hmm
just sit and work at it. And why does that make you so happy?
It's a challenge, I guess. I like being challenged and forced to think through something, and also the satisfaction that comes from forcing yourself to think through something until you can make it make sense. For me, math, like getting the right answer is fulfilling, but it's only fulfilling if I've done it on my own. So when I look at resources, I'm looking for a starting place. I don't want the step by step, how did you do this? I want to be able to come up with that myself. Because if you force yourself through that practice, you're actually learning something. You're not just trying to absorb and memorize the work of someone else. That's what's exciting about it to
So,
me.
the ability to be able to have some self discovery, is what I'm
hmm
hearing you say. And
Yeah.
you like the journey.
hmm
Where
That's
does
what.
that journey take you? Because I'm like the dumbest person ever when it comes to math. You're
No, I guarantee
candy.
you're not. But I hear that from a lot of people.
Oh no, I do not. I'm the worst. I mean, come on. I'm like, probably because I don't understand. I mean, what does this help me with? So
Sure.
what does it help you with? Is it
Oh,
just the discovery? Is it just because it makes your mind tick or what?
it's actually. I will give you my favorite quote. It actually hangs above my whiteboard in my classroom.
Hmm.
And it's a quote from the writings of Plutarch about the famous Greek engineer and mathematician Archimedes. And it says he devoted his most earnest efforts to those studies, the subtlety and charm of which were not affected by the claims of necessity. And essentially, what that means, at least to me, is that this great engineer who did a lot of very applied mathematics that we still use today, like the concept of density, that's Archimedes, all these things. But he was most excited when he was working on something that was quote unquote useless.
Ah,
There was something about learning for the sake of learning that excited him more than what people may be able to use in everyday life. And I feel like that, to me, is where I find joy in mathematics, whether it's applied or not, because I find joy in learning for the sake of learning. There's something beautiful in that process. There's something valuable in that process, even if you can't tie it to something directly in the world.
Sure. When did you start to figure out that about yourself?
I really didn't figure that out until I was a sophomore in college. So
Hmm.
when I went through high school math, I did take the advanced courses, but math was always super boring to me. It was not something that I found any great joy in. And it was mostly because I wasn't applying myself to that process. I was doing math in the sense of my teacher works a problem. I copy that process exactly, which was easy for me because memorization has always been easy for me. But I never really learned anything. And so I'd forget. Like by the time
Sure.
I got into college and was taking Calculus 2, I had completely forgotten everything. And it was one of the hardest courses I ever took because I realized I didn't know any math really because I had just coasted through for years on this memorize and then forget and throw it away formula.
So it's when you finally said, "Hey, I just have to apply myself. Like, here's the
To think,
principles, and then think it through."
yeah, the art of thinking rather than just memorizing. And memorization is not learning, and it's something that's hard for people to grasp sometimes.
I still
Myself
love,
very much included in that.
yeah, I still love, like, I wish Zeke could tell us what was in his head, right? Zeke is his cousin who's like a lot younger and has autism, and lives near me. And what did he say at Thanksgiving? Oh, he didn't say your name. He's like, oh, you're number 17. I'm like, where is he getting that from? I have a bunch of pictures on my wall that apparently he was number 17 on the wall. So
Yep.
I'm like, there you go. He thinks in numbers. Anyhow, I just wish sometimes he could tell us what he's thinking. I'm glad you can. That's
Yeah,
good.
it
So
helps a lot.
it does help to know what you're thinking. So I've heard a couple things. I think math is kind of your thing that kind of lights you up. And I know we've talked a little bit too, just about, and I probably won't go there just because we've talked enough offline, right? But
Mm,
I think you're kind of going through your journey of just trying to say, is there something bigger than me? And I think what you have found is that math is that thing for you,
yeah.
right? And that you can explore that there's a truth to that for you, like the numbers
Hmm.
don't lie, right? And then the people part of it for you, I know you've talked a little bit about, you love to have done play productions, you love it when you can connect with a student.
Hmm.
What gives you strength then to, because I know we've talked a lot on this too, just about who you are, but what gives you the strength to try and look to others and try and lift others, even if you're not feeling it yourself? Like this play right now sounds like you're really not feeling it.
Yeah. I guess the people themselves and reaching out grants you strength in return. Anytime you can make a meaningful connection, it's mutually beneficial. Like when I've had students, I worked at a boys rehab center for my first year of teaching, and through that experience I had so many times where I felt like I was a positive adult role in these kids' lives who did not have that, and just
Yeah.
knowing that and being able to help, it feels good to help people. It does.
So why is that? Like, why does it make you feel good?
I'm not sure. Not sure beyond I care about people, and I know that about myself.
Yeah.
And so it is rewarding. It might just be part of the way I'm put together. I know it's not necessarily that way for everyone, but for me, it's been true that helping people makes me feel good. And I can't explain that beyond,
Just
I
that's the
mean,
truth. It
that's the
makes you feel
truth for
good.
me.
Yeah.
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 Because I
So,
care. That's one of the things I'd say I hate the most about myself is how invested I get into other people because it's painful sometimes, and I get scared of that. But at the same time, it is something that brings me the most joy. So it's a double-edged sword.
right, right. Well, I know for me, lad, this was a double seizure week for me.
Mm,
So I had one day where I had a couple of seizures, and I was with people. And, I sure appreciated just getting to learn their story. And it's another person who has cancer, and her husband that I was hanging out with for a day, and just learned so many cool things about them. They were kind and patient. Like, I'm going to we went to a restaurant. I'm going to have a seizure now.
Mm.
And I did. And thankfully not too big. But there's something, I think, yeah, just that connection with people is amazing, isn't it?
It is.
And it does bring a certain light, I think, into our
Hmm.
life. So,
For
what's
sure.
a kind of a recent moment you've had with someone? Like, who are some of the biggest lights for you in your life?
One of my most favorite people that I work with in the theater realm is I have a director named Jen, and
Mm,
she really does. She reminds me of my mother in so many different ways, and she really is like a second mother to me and has been. I've done shows with them since I the year after I graduated high school is when they started their theater company, and I've done shows with them since. Anytime I interact with Jen, I know she's happy to see me, and I'm happy to see her. And even if it's been a terrible day at work, and I'm not super excited about whatever choreography or songs we're doing that day, I'm excited to see Jen, and I know she's excited to see me. And
good.
so having connections like that where you have a sense of belonging and being loved is worth so much.
So you said she's like your mom. Is your mom the same way? Like,
Yes.
your
No, no,
mom
I
is
feel that
excited
same
to see you.
connection with my mother, which is why I don't know. Yeah. The that connection exists for both people. That's why I compare it to it's like she's my mother because I do share that same connection
Mm,
with my mother, which I
good.
know is not necessarily the case for every person in the world, but it's good that we each have someone who can be that connection.
Yeah. So what's a good moment you've had with someone lately
Hmm.
where you were able to lift them up?
I'm trying to think. There was, oh, which student was it? I felt like we had made a good. Oh, I know I've had one in the past just week or two. I guess I have a student who I'll just leave unnamed, just but she does not like math. That is not her thing at all. And while I don't know how much I've been able to necessarily help her in learning all the different rules and applications of mathematics, I do know that she feels comfortable in my classroom. She's a student who loves to come in and joke with me every single day, says hello to me in the hallways. Like, I know that she enjoys me, she enjoys my class, and she knows that I care about her, even if she's not going to invest the most energy into my subject. And
Sure.
just each day when I can share a joke with her, or she can tell me, oh, this is the worst, and I just don't want to do it, but I guess I'll try one problem or two problems. And there's a nice back and forth because there is a connection between me and that student. And so those experiences are pleasant and make me want to go back to work the next day.
Right. So through work, you've found that.
Hmm.
I know you've talked about your mom and others. What makes that connection meaningful to you? Because I've heard you say they make you feel good. What are you doing to make them feel good?
Well, I guess it comes back to what I said before about that it's mutually beneficial just in the fact that somehow knowing someone else cares, they know I care for them, I know they care for me, and it can just be as simple as knowing that. It's I guess for me it's not specifically I'm going to go and have this chat or whatever. It's I am going to dedicate some time to be with you in some way. It doesn't matter what that way is, and it never has for me. I don't need to like do I don't do gifts. I don't do like specific plans or things like that. To me, the way I show caring is I dedicate time to a person and I'm happy to be with them in whatever place doing whatever thing that they want to do, and I can truly be happy doing that because my focus is that person, not the activity,
Yeah.
if that
So I
makes
should feel
sense.
honored, just so people know. Ben, I call him Bambino. He has been for a
Yes.
long time. He's the only one that gets to call me Aunt Candy. we've gone on some trips together, right?
We have
I know some of them have really stressed you out,
a
and
little bit, but
I understand he really doesn't love to go in big cities. I learned that, or just the stress. I think of a lot of chaos. Boy, does he have a great sense of humor. I thought,
hmm,
and that to me, that's actually been one of the funnest things is you can see the light side of things. Like, don't take yourself or this situation too seriously, and you can sure crack a good joke now and again.
oh yes, tiny.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think you were always the one that loved to, I think, just put yourself out there. I think that's probably why you like theater, right? Is you could
Hmm.
dress up, you could be whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could crack a good joke on the stage, right?
Hmm. Right.
That's always been fun to see you in that. Anyhow, he's been in some really fun comedies for sure. So, is there anything else just in terms of this Lulo, looking upward and looking outward?
Mm.
Any thoughts for yourself on that? Just looking upward, looking outward.
I would thoughts for myself. I guess looking outward. Sometimes I need to remind myself that looking outward is kind of how I do rejuvenate myself in a way.
Yeah.
And not that we should frame connections with others in a selfish light, but it's okay to acknowledge that we benefit too. Because sometimes I think we focus too much on what we lose by trying to connect with others, especially if it's not a mutual connection or you feel like it's not an equal connection. We like to focus on, well, I don't have enough energy to do this. I can't connect with others. But it's okay to acknowledge that maybe that's the best way to get back some of that energy yourself is to build those meaningful connections. Because I would almost liken it to we're all, this is kind of a strange analogy, but we're all spiders building a web over kind of a black hole, and every time you connect to someone else, you have a thread that's going to help hold you up in the center there. And as you let those threads decay because you're too tired to build new ones, you actually end up just lowering yourself further down.
Mm,
In an attempt, you're trying to conserve energy, you're trying to lift yourself up, keep yourself afloat. And yet, really, if you don't acknowledge that those connections go both ways, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I need to take my own advice in that because I would say I've let connections fade as time has gone on, just saying I'm too tired, I can't do it. But really, I'm just going to get the fewer the connections I'm making, the more tired I'll get, the harder things will seem. And so it's just a
interesting. You
reminder.
figured that out about yourself. That's then there's me going through chemo where I'm like, I am tired. It takes a lot of effort sometimes to say, I'm going to go connect with a person. So, but worth it. I always feel so good once I do it. But yeah, sometimes it's getting over that mountain in my mind, right?
And
Yeah.
all of us do it.
Yeah. No, that's good. Anything you'd want to share, like with your mama around this?
That I love her, and I'll always love her, and I'll do everything I can to help her know that.
So, how do you help her know that?
My mom, it's important that I spend time not only with her, but with other members of our family. That's important to her. That makes her happy to see me maintain those connections. And so part of the reason I am so diligent in doing that is to honor my mother. And it's not that I don't enjoy those connections, but that is something I think about every time is this will make her happy.
Yeah,
Because she really doesn't, at least in my experience, it's not the physical things that make my mom so happy as the emotional connections that we build and that we dedicate time to and we place importance on. So I guess that's how I show my love to my mother. And there are probably better and more diverse ways that I could be doing that, but that's how I've done it so far.
good. And you just spent time, didn't you, with all the family?
Yeah. Yeah, we had our family reunion a couple weeks ago. Went down,
That
and I was
Maverick came
maybe not
on.
the most pleasant on that trip, and I do feel bad about that. But I can do better.
Well, can't we all?
Yes.
Anyway, well, anything else you feel like you want to talk through?
I feel like we've covered the important stuff.
I think so too. It is so good to see you and your map behind you. It's like
Oh,
coming out of your
good to
brain.
see you.
Like it's
The
amazing.
fan, the
Uh
peacock
huh.
tail.
Uh huh. Yep.
Mm.
Yep. Sure love you. I hope you know
Love
that.
you.
And say it one more time. You love, what's my name?
I love you, Aunt Candy.
Thanks. I love you, Bambino.